forward, halt, left, 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 right, your left, 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 right. Down, 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 down.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do. Good afternoon, Finish This Fight crew. Welcome to the podcast today. It is Wednesday, 3:30 Eastern time. Y'all, this is normally Warrior Wednesday, but I've learned some lessons in the past that being a warrior doesn't mean necessarily that you wore a uniform. It means that you went through a battle. And any of you that followed me for any amount of time know some of my history. Some of it I don't focus a lot on because it's dadgum been so long ago. But there was a time when old Glenn Baker was a Southern Gospel Quartet baritone. And for about 11 years, I toured the Midwest. And we recorded and did shows and ran into a lot of people, made some friends in that world. It's a great world. The world's a little different without a bunch of Southern gospel right now, but I made some friends in late 1990s, I think somewhere around 98. And it's just fitting that we reconnect right now. Y'all realize that we've got a huge push and a huge mission right now for Joshua Holm. Joshua, who's 31 months plus now, almost 32 months, paralyzed from the chest down, an Iraqi war veteran. And we had a chance to take him to New York City a few weeks ago and put him in an exoskeleton for him to walk again. We're pushing really hard to be able to buy that unit whenever the FDA approves it this year. But my mind is just one of those weird things. It's not a natural wonder. It's almost a natural, when God thinks about my mind. But it's circled back to a relationship that I've had for, golly, close to 30 years now. And I want to introduce you to some of my favorite people. These folks live in Missouri, kind of Kansas City area. I don't know why I never can remember the name of that town, but say hello to great friends of mine, Phil and Pam Morgan. Hey, Phil and Pam, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, guys. So I went ahead and put my makeup on, part of my makeup on, because Pam, you're in the picture and I've got to level up a little bit. Yeah, so, with the eye thing and having the cornea transplants and all that, when I take my sunglasses off, it looks like I've been run over by a truck. So the sunglasses increase my hotness factor by 25%. The cowboy hat is an additional 25%, but the problem is when I'm in this chair, I'm too short and it hits the backrest. Maybe I need to change chairs. I don't know.
Are these numbers actually verified, or is this what you have to believe in your own mind?
They are verified in my mind and nothing else. So here, let me just prove it to you. See the jack upness around my eyes? But I can see you. So guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Man, it has been a while since we've been belly to belly, face to face. I don't even know how many years now. Well over a decade, probably closer to 15 or 20 years, I guess. Yeah, it's been a good while. Probably since before I moved to Florida 19 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're still good looking last time we were together.
Dude, that's been a long time then, hasn't it? That's been a long time. Let's talk about you guys. Phil and Pam Morgan, gospel music singers. woodworkers, speakers, authors, all that kind of good stuff. Let's go back a day or two because you're old too. You dye your hair though. I can tell you use you use just for men a little bit somewhere.
You never tell a woman that she's old.
I didn't tell you that. You have quit aging a long time ago, Miss Pam. Here's a little bit that I know, Phil. We got into some stuff years and years ago, and I'm trying to remember. You started out in the honky tonk world. Is that a correct statement?
I'm sorry, what?
You started out kind of in the honky tonk world, right?
I was in country music. I was in country music world for 13 years.
Okay.
Started out professionally when I was 15. And then did that for 13, and then God called us into gospel music, and we have been doing that for 29 years this year. So
29 years. Talk about that transition, playing in the smoky bars to playing in the non-smoky churches.
Well, it as God was working through my life at that time, the atmosphere of the clubs, and that's at that point that was this is long before there was any kind of more instrumental music in church beyond just a piano and an organ. This before all the bands and everything. So the only place to really play was in clubs. And so as my walk with the Lord deepened, it just became more and more apparent that this is not where I need to be. So I had kind of a blessing of a transition from going playing in all clubs and things to doing more fairs and more family friendly events. And so that was nice. And during that time is when God opened up the door for me to sing on some stage shows. And there was a couple of different Opry shows here, kind of like the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville here locally in the Missouri area. We have several different small shows that have a Saturday night show, and I would go play piano and sing songs and accompany everybody, do some comedy for them, a little bit of everything. And back in 1996, we were the guitar player came to me. I've been actually backing up just a little bit. They always had a gospel section in each one of these shows, which I loved. And about 15 minutes at the end. So it was always like, well, Phil, you're a Christian. Why don't you do the gospel section? It's like, okay. After several months or maybe even a year, the guitar player came to us like, man, when are we going to record these songs that you've written? And I said, well, let's do it. And that was the beginning. We got together with some of the guys that I played with on the Opry shows, recorded our very first album in 1996.
So you were the token Christian at the bar scene. and trust me, I've been there. I know. And then so you were you writing music the whole time when you started at 15? Were you playing original songs? Were you playing covers? What were you doing?
Well, I started writing back when I was probably 5 years old. So I've written forever. Back in the early days with the country thing, I would mix in a few, but not primarily. Primarily we were doing cover songs. So I work in a couple of originals, but not very many.
So you know what? We're going to talk about an original country song here in a little while. But let's go on. So 1996, you said, is when you started into the gospel world. When did you meet your pretty wife?
That would have been, we met in high school. We went to different high schools together, and she was going out with my best friend or one of my good friends. And I told him, I told her that she could do better. And so that was 1985. Is that right?
Yes, it was the end of 1985.
Yeah.
So
my golly, you better remember, boy. I'm telling you right now. Don't be forgetting those anniversaries.
It was
exactly how it worked.
It's pretty close to that. It was December 15th of 1985 when I fell in love with Pam, and it took her quite a bit longer to fall in love with me, but she finally made it there.
I did.
It took her quite a bit longer. That's funny that you say that. So I wasn't going to do this right now, but let's do this right now. Okay. Do you remember a couple of years ago, you gave me a call and said, Glenn, I was driving down the road and I started writing a song. And it's got the word hell in it, so I probably can't use it in church. But Pam thinks it's a pretty good one. And since you're doing the country music thing now, I think it's okay if you sing hell. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And I still like that song. And I wouldn't be me, I wouldn't be above doing that in church as long as we didn't have to worry about going back the next week.
So I went to the studio and I've recorded a soundtrack for it. I haven't released it yet, but that's actually going to be probably my next release.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're going to go back in the studio. You know, I've kind of let music go to the wayside for the last year because of the movie and now the podcast and the foundation. It's taken a lot of, I never thought I'd do something like this, y'all.
Neither did I.
But I'm sure you did. But you've known me for 30 years or longer, and I've never been afraid to jump.
No.
When God said do it, it's like, okay, let's do it. Now you've scolded me a few times over the years. There was a time when I was wandering and I was rebelling and I was walking away from God and doing the Glenn thing. But God's got such an immense plan. And it's not that he doesn't know what we're going to do. He does. He's got a plan for us, and he's guided me, pulled me back in shortly after that. I'm closer with the Lord than I've ever been in my life. But I'm doing it in a way that I never would have dreamed of in my life. And I'm actually doing it from some honky tonks occasionally, Phil. We did a show 3 years ago with Big and Rich in Nashville at a place called Third and Lindsley. Mm-hmm. And I met in the green room prior to the show. Somebody introduced me to a guy, pulled him back to the green room, and his name is Benjamin Graham. And he's the nephew of Billy Graham. Wow. And so he and I had become great friends. And he was a pastor at that time in Nashville. And I asked him to open our show in prayer. Now we're in a honky tonk, 500 people drinking beer and having a great time. And my MC pulled out and said, "Hey, we're going to start this thing up, but we want you to take your hats off and bow your head, and we're going to start with prayer." And Billy Graham's nephew walked out onto the stage and led in prayer. Do you know what happened? What? At the end of when it was an amen, you'd think you're in a bar. It was like, and then holding the beer in the air. And I mean, there was some real joy that something like that was done. I think right now we are heading into a revival probably like we've never seen in our lifetimes. But it's not coming from the local New Testament church. It's coming from people that God has raised up or raised back up. And we're sick of the evil and the crap that's taking place. And I'm seeing lives changed all over the place. So my path has been somewhat different than your path. I could dismiss this. It keeps reminding me to come on my show, and I'm already here. I'm seeing people all over the place come back to maybe come to him for the first time, but more often than not come back. Because we've been in a period for the last 20 or 30 years. It's been really weird in the church and in our country. What's your take on that?
I would agree. I hope so. I know from some people that really pray for peace and preach all that. That's a wonderful thing to pray for. If you read the Bible, you realize it's not going to happen before Jesus comes back.
Nope.
I do pray probably more individually, and that's kind of always been our ministry. Instead of looking at the masses, we are much more concerned about each individual person. And so our greatest desire is for each person to have an active, real, honest relationship with God, and then to allow him to use them however he sees fit, just as he's done with you. And so I think that to me, that's what I get most excited about, is when I see God using people, especially sometimes, and I'm one of those, the last person folks would ever expect for him to use, and he does, and he gets the glory for it. And that's what we're.
Yeah, I'm really surprised he uses you like he does too, Phil. I mean, yeah, you're doing some amazing woodwork. You've got some amazing music. Many people on this podcast today may not know what Southern gospel is. They may not know what I used to do. Let's show them a little bit about what you guys do here. Let's have a little fun. You ready?
Well, this looks scary.
God, I can do it. Goliath had the soldiers a shaking in their boots. Little David came and said, "Hey, what is this?" The soldier said that giant, he's just way too big a hit. But David said he's way too big to miss. With God, I can do it. There's no challenge that's too big to overcome. With God, I can do it. I'll just stand my ground and watch old Satan run. Now, Paul had a problem called a thorn in his flesh. He prayed 3 times for it to go away. Then God said, my grace is sufficient for you. And I can almost hear old Paul say, with God, I can do it. There's no challenge that's too big to overcome. With God, I can do it. I just stand my ground and watch old Satan run. Everybody, let's praise the Lord with a hand clap.
Praise the Lord with a hand clap, man.
Hey, brother. Come on,
I found that dude today, brother, and I didn't have anything with us, with the Airborne Quartet and you guys together with us. I didn't have anything. So
you had to dig through the internet a long way to find that song. That's a few years.
That was a long time ago.
So yeah, it wasn't near as long ago as when we used to hang out.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, so when we used to hang out, a lot of the time it was pre-accident. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But so did you write that song that you were just singing there with that quartet?
I did. That was on our first album, the one that we talked about in '96.
Mm-hmm.
And that was several years later. We did that at a live concert with some dear friends of ours, the Higher Power Quartet from Des Moines, Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think I remember you talking about them back in the day.
Yeah,
So we're talking about music, and you're driving down the road one day, and you write a song, and it's pretty much talking about what you just said a little bit in your relationship. You met little Miss Pam, and you fell in love right away, and it might have taken her a little bit of time, and that doesn't surprise me. But do you remember the lyrics of that song?
Sure.
Let's see if we can do a little bit of that. I think so. Can you hear that? I'll start and then let's pick you up. They met in the moonlight, but it was bright enough for his young heart to see. Love there at first sight, but for her it might have taken 2 or 3. Pick it up, I forgot.
Yeah.
I can't hear it well enough to sing it. I'm sorry.
Here we go. A time kept revealing darkness hidden deep inside of him.
She kept believing.
I can't remember, but that was Phil's song, and he called me up one day and said, "Man, I wrote this song. He was doing country music. I think it'd be a perfect song for you." And I think you're right. I'm going to have to relearn the lyrics, get back in the daggum studio. But that is an amazing radio song. It's called "She Loved the Hell Out of Him," and I appreciate it, man. Most of what I've done, I've written myself or with somebody else. Yours is the only one that I'm recording that somebody else completely wrote. And it's a powerful song. It's going to be a great country music love song, but it's still really more about the love of God and how Jesus heals us and brings us back to him, where we can even be lovable on the earth here. Because, man, we get so caught up in our dadgum selves, we can't be lovable to a beautiful lady or much less anybody else. So I appreciate that song.
Well, you're welcome. That came from that is not our personal story, but I've known so many people like that. And the basic premise of the story is that this couple got married and everything looked wonderful, and then he ended up having a problem with alcohol, and she was always faithful, and she always welcomed him back in, and because of her faithful love, he came back, and they ended up having a wonderful life together. And so that doesn't always happen, but praise God, it does sometimes. And we know a lot of folks that now have a marriage that's stronger because they've gone through a difficult time.
Well, you know what? And everybody that I know that's really stepping up in a battle that I'm in, which is unfortunately political battle. We don't talk about politics, you and I, very much, but and I don't like it even, but that's where the battle is in our country right now. We're in the spiritual battle of a lifetime. I think if God opened our eyes up to the spirit world worldwide, I really believe half of the population might fall over from a heart attack, seeing the actual battle spiritually that's taking place in our realm. But my battle is falling under, military and political now as well. And I know that's not yours, but your battle is spiritual and lifting others up. And so, Pam, you and I met and Phil met somewhere in the late 90s, and I think we were doing a show. Seems like with the Melody Boys Quartet.
Would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it was somewhere. It was a festival we were at, and we met you at a festival. I don't remember. It's been too daggum long ago. But we met you all at a festival. We became friends at that point. And then I was doing a show. I was doing a production in Pryor, Oklahoma.
I remember that.
With the Melody Boys Quartet, the Airborne Quartet, and Phil and Pam Morgan. And I think from that point we became friends. And that was somewhere in 97 or 98, something like that.
Probably
and yeah, and we played together many different times. You guys invited us up to your neck of the woods. We did some shows up there. And what's the name of the town? I forget again. Where are you from?
We're in Lee's Summit, Missouri.
Lee's Summit. That's right. I never can remember that. I don't know why. It's a brain block. But we came up there and did some stuff with y'all, and then just became friends. And then one day in middle of summer, I think, what was the year?
2000.
June 4th of 2000 is when we had our accident. Yeah.
June 4th of 2000. Let's talk about that. June 4th. What happened on that day, guys?
I think we lost you.
I say, what happened on that day, guys? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because I know that night about midnight I got a phone call from you. But talk about that day in June. What happened?
Let me share. We were on the road we had a really busy tour schedule, and we had some singles that were starting to go up the charts. On Saturday, we had a full all-day music festival that we hosted outside, and it was long and tiring. And the next day we had 2 different concerts in different churches, did our morning concert, and we were on our way down to South Missouri for our evening concert. And it's one of those quick moments. Pam was in the back with our 2 daughters. Our young daughters were with us that day, and about 5 and 21 months, I believe they were.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And just one of those moments that, like it happens to all of us. I was incredibly tired. I was trying to keep it quiet up there so the girls could get some much needed sleep. And I just did that little blink. And unfortunately, that little blink was right when we were approaching a bridge, and our van hit the guardrail of that bridge, traveling 70 miles an hour. On impact, it flipped the van over, and Pam was in the back. She was trying to get the girls calmed down so she could come back up and sit with me in the front. So she didn't have a seatbelt on because it was stuck down in the seat. She didn't take the time to dig it out. So she went like a bullet through the backside window. And it was a terrible thing, but there was God's hand in it from the very beginning, because somehow she hit the pavement going 70 miles an hour. The van passed over her. Our equipment trailer broke loose and flipped end for end, and it passed over her, and she slid over and ended up on the side of the bridge, on the very edge of the bridge, and terribly, terribly injured, but not crushed and still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Golly, it's been 25 years ago. I still get teared up about it.
Mm-hmm. It was a horrible fall.
Well, yeah.
I don't remember any of it. I don't have any. I'd never had any fear of getting back into a van. I was asleep when it happened, and that was the problem. Is I preached seatbelts to everybody I knew, but everybody's done it. I think is I'm only going to be here for just a few minutes, and I'll be fine. So I'm not going to even worry about the seatbelt right now. I'm just going to get my kids to sleep, that kind of thing, and then I'm going to crawl back up. And it just happened in the blink of an eye. And that's the way things happen. So we have to be prepared. And, but it was, I was called in as a fatality. So, but God's hand was evident, even if not to me, because I was completely out of it. Don't remember a thing. But God's hand was evident from the very beginning that he was in control in the ways that everything came together, the people who were following us, everything. In fact, you know, in the process of writing my book about it, I interviewed the paramedics and asked them how it was that they remembered the details years later in such, you know, just so accurately. And they said, because it was textbook and it never happens that way. And my only explanation for that is that it was just God. It was God. So it's been a miracle from the beginning.
I still remember all these years later, and it was somewhere around midnight. Phil, you called me, and that was pre-cell phone. So this was a landline. You called me on a landline, and I woke up and answered the phone, and I'm like, Phil, what's going on? And you're like, we've had a bad accident. And you told me what had happened, and it just broke my heart for you as much as for Pam, because you're the husband. You're the man that was driving. You were the one that's supposedly in control. And for that moment, lost control because of a micro nap. How did you handle that part, Phil?
Well, I get that question a lot. That's like, how did you deal with the guilt? And really from the beginning, part of it was we were so busy. As Pam went through, I had so many jobs to do, taking care of our kids, being there for Pam as a kind of a nurse and working with the doctors and everything. But really from the very beginning, we both, and Pam didn't blame me for it because it was an accident. It was not intentional. It was nothing I would ever wanted to do or ever intended to do. But it happened. And so I guess that's kind of my mindset of I look at situations and I look forward of how to fix them. Maybe that's because I'm a guy.
Well, yeah, that is us. That's how we work.
It doesn't help anything for me to dwell on what happened in the past that I can't fix, and to just wallow and pity and blame and so I was focused on we're gonna move forward. This is what we've got to deal with right now, and we're gonna move forward. The most difficult thing I've ever been through it was just a total unknown, because we not only did our life screech to a halt. We had little kids, and their mom was in the hospital for
a long time.
By the time it was done with the hospital and therapy, we didn't have a job anymore because we were self-employed in the gospel music. So there was no paycheck. It ground to a halt really quick. And I didn't know how God was going to get us through it. But we walked with him long enough that I knew he would. Somehow he would.
Every time. So Pam, I do remember we came up to the hospital shortly thereafter. Once you regained consciousness and you could have visitors, and girl, you looked like pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
Pretty rough shape. And at that time, the prognosis was not good. Let's talk a little bit about that. What were the doctors telling you the first weeks and months that you were in the hospital?
Well, let's clarify my injuries just a little bit. We didn't talk about that. I was, of course, I was covered from head to toe in road rash. My left arm was nearly torn off. The side of my face was torn off down to the bone. My ear was torn in two. But the worst injury was to my neck. I crushed 4 vertebrae, and 2 of them in my neck were completely dislocated, so that you could trace on the MRI the image of my spine made 2 90-degree turns. And the neurologist or neurosurgeon said that it was the worst injury he'd ever seen in his career of someone who was still living. And that was miracle number 1, was that I even survived that kind of an injury. So, and that was just the grace of God, the grace of God. But, and his plan, and he knew what he was doing. But what the issue was, is they told me that within 72 hours or so, about 3 days, that I would, if I was going to have any return, which they highly doubted, because I was on the scale of severity, severity of paralysis. It's they call it an Asia scale, and it's in letters from A to whatever. And the most severe is A, and I was an Asia A. And so and it was a complete injury. So it appeared on the image that my spine was severed in a couple of places. So it was just absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Which left her paralyzed from the chest down.
Yes.
She had no movement, anything or feeling below that point.
Yes.
That affected her, of course, it affected her arms. She couldn't walk at all, of course, arms and legs.
I had no movement from the chest down. I was quadriplegic. And that was a permanent condition. He said there was no hope of me walking again.
Except there was hope.
But God.
But God. Yes. But God.
But God. So a year later, fast forwarding a year, close to a year, I get a phone call. And Phil's on the other line again. I'm like, oh crap, Phil's calling me. But this time it was, hey, I need some help. Would you consider coming up and setting sound? I'm like, yeah, for what? I said, Pam's ready to walk again. And on June, what's the date again? The next year to the day.
June 4th.
June 4th of the next year, which is what, 2001. Pam walks out on a stage to stand. And for the first time, took a microphone in her hand and did a concert when she was never, ever supposed to have been able to walk before.
Well, actually, that was the day we went into the studio to record, was June 4th of 2001. So
the concert was the end of August.
Yeah, the concert was the end of August in 2001.
You know what? I've believed for a whole year that I was there a year to the day later. Now you're telling me I've been lying for 30 years?
Yeah. Whatever you got to tell yourself, but that was not the exact. But the song that the book comes from is the song that I wrote called "I Stand," and Pam recorded that a year to the day after the accident. At the time, she had to record it sitting down because she couldn't stand up that long.
Yep. We
did walk back in the studio, and this is kind of a fun little thing because if you don't have a sense of humor, I don't know how you get through difficult times in life. But she told me, and she said, well, what happens if I go out there and I'm singing this song and I fall down? Because she did fall down quite a bit. I said, well, it depends on what kind of church we're in. I said, if we're in a Pentecostal church, just roll around for a while and I think you're slain in the spirit.
Oh, goodness.
And if we're in a Methodist or Baptist, we'll just take an offering.
Exactly. And folks, if y'all haven't been in all the different denominations like they have and like I have, you may not get the joke. You know what we used to do? We used to do some shows in a lot of different ones. And Methodist in Oklahoma is not the same as Methodist in Michigan. We call them rock and roll Methodist up in Michigan. But then we come back down and do the Mennonite thing. And here's how you know that you're really reaching the Mennonites down to their soul. And it's when they got their hand on the back of the pew doing this with you. And a little bit of smile. That's pretty radical right there.
Oh, yeah.
And, the cool part is, and we never want to poke fun or offend anybody, because it has been a blessing for us to get to be in just about every denominational flavor that you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We've met wonderful people in all of them. We all serve the same God. We express a little different sometimes.
Yeah.
And so we love to joke about that. We've got as many of our own hangups as everybody else does. And we just love everybody. And so when we tease, we never mean for that to be offensive.
No.
No, not at all. No, it's all in fun. It's all in fun. But it was an eye-opening experience for this born and raised Southern Baptist whenever I got out into that world. And the black churches were amazing, man. We thought we were superstars there. They just enjoy worship. So yeah, it's a different world walking into the different denominations. So you're a year later, you're recording the song. A few months after that, we come up and you do your first show out. Pam, you walked out.
I did, and I was scared to death. I was scared to death. I loved it. I mean, I was so so happy that God had brought me that far. But in my mind, I had expected to be 100%, back 100%, and walking was still difficult for me. And this was 15 months after the accident. And I had expected a one-touch complete healing. I knew God could do it. He'd done it countless times in scripture, and I knew he could still do it. If he had the power then, he definitely has the power now. But that wasn't his plan for me. So my healing was a gradual process, and really it was a healing from the inside out. And that's what's so hard for us, I think, sometimes, or all the time, is when God's plan doesn't match up with our plan.
Well, that's almost never the case in my life.
Exactly. You are so right. You're so right. I mean, and that's the way it works. But God's ways and his ways are so much higher than our ways, and only he knows what he's doing. And to make us truly fruitful and truly effective as witnesses for him, he has to take us through the fire, because that's where people live. And that's where I lived. And to be honest, when it all happened to me, I didn't care. I didn't care about ministry. I didn't care. I just wanted to be put back the way I was. And that's just that's natural. That's human for us. It didn't mean that my faith was decreased any. I still loved and believed in God. I was just mad. I was mad. I was mad that his plan wasn't my plan, and I had 2 babies at home, and I couldn't be the mom that I thought I needed to be for them. But being a mom has nothing to do with what you can do. It has everything to do with how you love them and how you teach them. And so, and part of teaching them is how you live. So that was a wake-up call for me.
We've had this conversation a time or two over the years, and God is okay with you being mad at him.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't offend him at all. He's the one that gave you these emotions, and you had to work through them. And we have a choice in how we work through them. You had a choice, Pam. You could have stayed bitter your whole life. You could have just sat down and given up. You could have gone into the bottle. You could have gone into pills. I'm sure you had pain pills available all the time.
Yes, I did.
You could have gone into that route, but you chose faith. And you know the things that I've gone through in the last 10 years, or longer, 12, I guess. And I've learned something. And I've learned it. I didn't learn it on the stage or behind the pulpit. I learned it in an 8x10 jail cell. This Glenn is still here, Phil. I'll still get teared up. I learned it in an 8x10 jail cell. I truthfully believe that I don't have the statistics behind this, Phil. I don't have the statistics, but I believe there's a very large percentage of the church, of Christian folks, that have not got a clue what walking in faith and living in faith really means. The word says that without faith, we can't please God. Glenn says, without trials, you're probably going to have a real hard time figuring out what faith is. It's not found in the light. It's found in the dark. It's not found in the easy. It's found in the hard. And we tend to, as American Christians, Americanized Christians, and we've been around the preaching a long time, that well, if you're a Christian, your life's going to be prosperous, and it's going to be comfortable, and it's going to be easy, and it's going to be, and if you have faith, you can pray, and God's going to give you what you ask for. Y'all, that dadgum ain't ringing real to me, and I don't think it rings real to Miss Pam, because Pam, by golly, wanted to be healed completely, and it didn't happen. Pam, I've got a question for you. And we're going to go from here. And I'm going to take a break. I want to play a quick video, because I got to take a break and show what I'm doing. But I got a question for you, and it's based on my life too. I went through some serious hell. My life, I lost everything in 2017. God has restored me, and he's put me on a completely new path that I've never would have found. And people ask, I've been asked many times, would you not go through it if you had the choice? Y'all, you couldn't give me $10 million and take that time away from me. Because God, here I go again. God knew what was going to happen. He didn't put me there. It was part of the free will of this world that put me there. But he knew, and he promised me. It's whispered in my ear in that jail cell, son, I got a plan for you, Glenn. And it ain't this. Quit looking with your eyes, smell them with your nose, taste them with your tongue, hear them with your ears, and touch them with your skin. I got a plan for you, and it's to prosper you, not to harm you. I will take what's meant to harm you, and I will turn it into good if you trust me.
It's okay.
So, Pam, I ask you, because I know how much you've suffered and struggled. Could they buy it back from you where it never happened?
No. I pray it never happens again. I'm not going to lie about that.
No, I'm not. No. No.
Yeah. No. But without that, I wouldn't have the relationship I have with my Jesus now. And I wouldn't know what he can do. Does that mean that I live a perfect life now? Heavens no. And how and how quickly we forget and sometimes need to relearn, but hopefully not to the degree that we had to the first time around. But no, because of who he's made me to be now, and who I'm able to help now. Not just people who've been through accidents, but we all, I mean, if we've suffered in life, we all go through the same elements of suffering. I've said there's a grief process there. I mean, there's just a process of dealing with these things. And so it's incredibly rewarding to know that my pain and my suffering is not for naught, that I have been able to bring glory to God through it. And that was one of the issues when I was at that crisis of belief on where I was going to go. Which road was I going to turn? Was I going to turn my back on God and be bitter and refuse to let him do anything with me and then through me others? Or was I going to allow myself to be clay in his hands? Yeah.
What you mentioned earlier really resonated, because that's as far as reaching people that need to have that real relationship with God and to see what it looks like, not what their preconceived ideas maybe from some preacher that they've seen on TV, but just what it really looks like to walk through life with God. And that's been the motivation for our ministry all these years. And Pam's blessing and her miracle was kind of a twofold miracle. The first was that it truly was a miraculous healing. Her neurosurgeons and everybody, in fact, her neurosurgeon took her case file to the meeting of all the great neurosurgeons or whatever their convention is, and showed her case and asked if anybody had seen anything like that or had any explanation. And they didn't. And he even said when we were featured on, I think it was Oprah, one of the TV shows, he was quoted as saying, "We have no explanation of why she's able to walk other than it's God." So the first part of our miracle, or first part of our testimony, is to show folks that God has the power. He's bigger than any problem we face. By allowing Pam to be left with a thorn of her hands not working real well, she still struggles to walk some. He also shows the grace that he gives day after day after day as we walk through difficult times, when he chooses not to bring the complete healing, when he chooses to say either no or not yet. And that's where a majority of people are living that we come in contact with. And I think the fact that we can show them both. We can give them the hope that, yeah, God can fix this.
Yeah.
But if he chooses not to right now, it doesn't mean he's forgotten about you. He's going to walk you through every day.
Well, that leads into something. I need to play this video, and I want us to come back to that. We can talk about where life has taken you from that point on, and then how it's going to be something that we need to talk to the folks that are watching. We've got over 2,500 people watching live right now. There's somebody out here that needs to hear this. So let me go to this video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about that real quick. Right, Tom?
So I had a 60 millimeter mortar that landed 3 feet in front of me, and so it didn't cook off. And so it technically they would consider it to be a dud, but it wasn't a dud. It had a broken propeller on it. I got pictures of it. I carry with me and stuff. It's about the size of a 1.5 liter bottle, but it has kill radius about 25 meters, 20 to 25 meters. So basically, if that round would have went off, then confirmed dead would have been 20 to 25 meters. Been 31 months since I've been able to stand on even with a brace, or being able to take one single step. So it's been 31 months to the day yesterday.
And then God leaned in and he said, you know what? You're going to do a foundation. You're going to be the one to help these boys, and some girls, I'm sure, get to walking again, back on their feet.
It became so real when we physically came here and I physically got to see face to face to that unit, and knowing that, I mean, like I said, it's pretty much like an avatar. I mean, I felt like I, plugged in and we became one. Like I was breathing with it, like, I mean, it just incredible. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even describe the feeling that I have. But like, it was like deep down inside of me, it's like, you know what, I felt like I can fight again. I really am able to stand again, and I'm like, I can do this.
Like, I guess the sense of pride, like to stand tall. No matter what height you are, not a jab at Glenn, but just to stand, I think is huge. You take it for granted.
Y'all, that's what we're doing, and I'm going to come back to Phil and Pam in just a moment. I just put 2 and 2 together. I think possibly Pam's story is probably part of the reason where I'm at right now. Is helping these guys, and I'm sure there's going to be some ladies that have been wounded for us. There's technology out there now that can get them back on their feet, and we are on a mission. In about 6 weeks, we're going to be launching the Walk for a Hero, Joshua's Journey walkathon. I want you all to pay attention to that. But in the meantime, we need about $140,000 to go ahead and pay for the bring home model, because the VA is not doing it. In the last 10 years, there's been less than 100 units provided to our military. There's been over 10,000 men that have been physically qualified for one, and they're just not helping. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And this new technology actually is even greater than anything that's been in the U.S. to this point. So if you have a chance and you've got some funds, go to givesendgo.com/finish this fight. All of that's going to be used for this mission. Finish this fight. Givesendgo.com, finish this fight. And we'll pay for that. We're going to talk to you all about this fundraiser. It's going to be fun. We're going to do some viral video challenges. We're going to have a good time. But that's coming up. So I wanted to show that to you. And let me bring these guys back on. Pam, Phil, Pam, for you specifically, what did that video do for you?
Brought back some memories. I've been there. I remember what it was like to stand up in a standing frame, they called in physical therapy. And just after not standing for so long, and just to be up it was partly terrifying to realize it's like, oh, I'm a lot farther from the ground than I've been in a long time. But secondly, it was just so liberating to feel the weight kind of on my feet. I mean, you can't feel anything, but you can. It's just you can't even describe it. But it's amazing, and what an experience for these men and women to be able to do that.
Sis, I was a mess in that clinic when he took his first steps.
I'm sure.
I've known this young man for a couple of years. He is the real deal.
So you can walk with that too?
Yeah, he can walk with it. That's actually the clinical version that you saw. That's got a chain holding it up. Oh. But the take-home model is self-balancing. Doesn't need canes for balance or anything. It balances for him. So we're waiting on FDA approval right now. It should be approved by the end of this year. And my goal for the next 7 months is to raise enough money to put 10 of these things on our veterans. That's $1.5 million. Mm-hmm. In the last 10 years, there's been less than 100 of the old model that they still have to have the upper body strength and the hand strength to handle the canes for balance. And there's been less than 100 of those gone out to our military. Now with the new technology, that 10,000 is going to probably go up to around 30,000 because that upper body strength and hand strength is no longer required. The machine does the balancing for you.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Pretty amazing. We're on a big mission. We're going to be doing a walkathon, Walk for a Hero, Joshua's Journey, coming up real soon. I'm going to challenge y'all to take a little part in that. And we'll talk about that later on. But let's go back to your story because we're getting close to only about 10 minutes left. Let's go back to your story, Phil and Pam. So what happened? You took your first step out on the concert tour, and your whole life changed at that point. Let's talk about it in a whirlwind over the next 20 years. What's going on?
Well, a lot of appearances, a lot of concerts, a lot of speaking engagements since then. It took me a while, but thanks to a dear friend of mine, Brenda Black, I was able to write a book with her help and with her counsel, actually. So she ended up being so much of my counselor through that whole writing process. But it took me, oh my goodness, 7 years. It took me 7 years from the time we started to write it. And partly because if a book is going to speak and is going to minister to people, you've got to relive it. You've got to relive the pain. Mm-hmm. You've got to make it real. People have got to feel like they are right in your lap, just rolling around in the wheelchair and all of that kind of thing. And so,
Pam, that's a very strong statement. And I think you are nailing a truth that a lot of people don't realize. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to know the makeup you. They don't want to know the Maybelline you, the one that's looking perfect for the show. They want to know the rawness, the realness. And what a gift that God has given me is the ability to be transparent. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've screwed up a bunch, but there's no skeletons in my closet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you go in my closet, you're going to say, oh, that's Joe. I know that skeleton, you know? and for you to be willing and able to do that, Pam, that is a step beyond what most people have any comfort in at all. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that because there's not very many people willing to be that transparent and that vulnerable.
Well, thank you. But I'm telling you, it was process. And that was one of the things that God needed to heal me of, is because most women, we find our worth in our ability and in our appearance. And both of those things were gone with me. And so, in fact, we've got a picture segment in my book that shows the realness of all of that. And if you've got a weak stomach, you might just want to be warned. So there are some pictures in there that will share the whole story. But that was a huge challenge. But that's what it takes to be effective, is because that's where people live. And so if you're going to make a difference you have to be willing to go there. And that was part of Brenda's job, is she was really rough on me as an editor, and she's still one of my best friends. And so she's a professional writer. And so as a professional writer, she would read my chapter after I would read it. And she would come back, and sometimes she would say, look, this whole section, you got to redo it. She says, you got to redo it because it's not real enough. She was there. In fact, we were at their house the day of the accident. And so she went through that thing with me. And so that's why she was the perfect person to go through the writing journey with me, because she knew exactly what needed to be said. So
yeah. Well, Phil, I do want you to know that I am writing a book now, and it's not a coloring book. So we should have that out in about the next 4 to 6 months. And I understand what you're talking about is going through the process. So you wrote the book. It took a little while to get out there, but you did a lot of speaking engagements. You've been on a lot of stages, some of them secular. Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, that was early. That was in 2003.
Yeah.
The book wasn't out then. And then we were on Montel Williams back in the day, and
a whole bunch of stuff.
And in newspapers. And of course, one of the Kansas City Star is what kind of launched that whole thing. Is we had a really good friend at church with us who was relentless at contacting one of the writers of the Star. And anyway, and they came out and he lived with us for 3 days and wrote an amazing piece on the whole situation. So
yeah, I remember that. So you've written books, you've done speaking across the country, you've done women's retreats, you've done concerts all over the place. And it's a different world now. What's going on in your lives right now?
Well, we've slowed down quite a bit. Life has, of course, now that we're 25 years out of the accident, and as we've aged, and
no, I think it's the Phil. Come on.
As we've aged, we've had to change some things up, because traveling and touring is not easy work, and it's hard on our bodies. It's hard on my body. So all the travel and the setup and the tear down and concerts and things like that. And so we've had to change up our ministry just a little bit. And because arthritis has not been my friend. And so we're working on that. But we've branched out into different horizons of ministry. So Phil is working at a local church as music minister there. And we're still doing some concerts around and hoping to fill out our schedule just a little more. But but I'm in a beauty consultant with Mary Kay, and I'm also working in the craft industry. So I do T-shirts and tote bags and different things like that. So I'm it's just different horizons for us right now. Yeah.
Okay.
We're having a wonderful time. And, over the years, and probably part of the reason most of your viewers have not heard of us is we had an option at one point, should we take this and pursue the larger industry type ministry, or should we stay with the churches? And God really, really put it in our hearts that we were supposed to minister at the street level. So even though we've done 18 albums and 3 books and thousands of concerts, I couldn't tell you how many concerts. It's been across the United States, but it's been in smaller venues and in individual churches, and that's where God called us to be, and that's where we're happy to be.
Well, cool. I'm trying to put this up here, and I can't see out of one eye, and I'm blind in the other one. And I wrote your names, Phil and Matt Morgan, a moment ago.
Appreciate that.
Phil and PamMorgan.com. That's where you can find these guys. We've known each other a long time. I love you guys. We don't get to see each other very much at all, but I love you guys. You've got a very unique story. You've got a unique place to tell it from. You can tell your story with vulnerability, and you have compassion. There's some folks out here. We've got over 3,000 people watching live right now. There's some folks out here right now I know that are hurting. There's a lot of people also. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. There's a lot of people also that think God isn't real. You know, we're in a society right now where it's very easy to be anti-God because you're behind a keyboard. There's no consequences.
Right.
And I tend to tell people, if you're one of these people that thinks God is the gray-haired dude in the sky, it's cartoon character, it's not real, it's made up, it's Christianese, I dare you, go someplace quiet and call out to him and just ask him to reveal himself to you. It's all you got to do. You don't have to do this certain prayer. You don't have to go take a shower and clean up and put your pretty days, Sunday shoes on. Call out to him and ask him to reveal himself to you, and he will. He will. Pam, Phil, what would you have to say as we wrap this thing up to those that are watching this right now? Your story's hard to believe, and you've been through a lot. And I heard you say, Pam, God allowed this to happen, and he knew what was going to take place, and you wouldn't take nothing for it again. People out there are hurting. What would you have for them?
The story's not finished yet. Your story is being written right now. And don't turn your back on God, because he is the only one that has any power to help you when you're at your lowest. That's really what got me through. He is the Almighty God. He created the stars. He just breathed them out. But we are so important to him that he is only a prayer away. And he hears every word that you can't even utter. He knows exactly what you're feeling. And so he promises that he doesn't promise he'll take away the pain and the suffering. But he does promise that he will walk with us every single step of the way. So hold on, because he's got you.
Wow. Phil, any closing thoughts?
What Pam said is just 100% true. God, we always try to tell people, God is bigger than whatever problem you're facing. And he loves you more than you can possibly imagine. So as she said, your story's not over yet. This is not the end. And we know as Christians, we know how the story is going to end, and it's got a great end. So we're going to live forever. So we're living one page at a time right now, and some of those pages are tough, but the reality is there's always another page.
Phil and Pam, y'all are living testimony of going through torturous things, coming out the other side. We're not done yet, but being victorious and being useful and having a productive, fun, happy life. And it didn't look good 25 years ago. It didn't look good.
Nope.
I am a living example of somebody going through sheer hell, and God saying, don't worry about it, brother. Don't worry about it, son. I got a plan for you, and it's going to be something cool. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, and I want y'all to hang out just a minute as we close. Don't go away when we close. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something, and we're going to get out of here. Life is going to happen. Bad stuff happens to good people. It's just because we're in a broken, fallen world and people have free will, and it's not paradise yet. We're not there yet. It's going to happen. But there is a God that loves you. There is a God that will help you through it. We do win at the end, and listen to him and find his promises for you, because they're valuable. They're important to you, to your life. I mean, how do we go through life without hope? I don't know. I don't know how we go through life without hope. So I'm going to ask you, find him, find his purpose. His purpose is right there, and get in touch with Jesus. Y'all, tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern time, I've got John Teagan from the Benghazi debacle, was left there to die after being sent in to rescue the ambassador. We're going to have him sitting in the chair, finish this fight podcast tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern time with John Teagan. Y'all, I love you. Uncle Glenn loves you. And I'm going to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining. And we are out. See you on the other side.
Forward, halt, left, 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 right. Your left, 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 right.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan. took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. Kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call